The snow had come lightly in the night, not enough to hide the ground, only enough to show what had crossed it. I had spent 3 days beneath the dark spruce, moving little and finding less. A mouse had passed under one drift. A grouse had lifted before I came close. The old deer trails carried only frozen scent, pressed down by wind and distance until there was nothing in them I could follow. Hunger did not sharpen me anymore. It slowed me. I had stayed high because the timber held the wind back, and because a wolf with little strength does not waste it crossing open ground. Then, beneath the pale trunks at the edge of the spruce, I found tracks made after the snow. A mule deer doe had passed downhill before daylight. Her scent was still in the powder. The front prints were clean. One rear hoof had dragged a narrow line after each step. Not broken, not helpless, slower. Somewhere below timberline, she was still moving. The spruce behind me held shelter. The tracks ahead held meat. I left the trees. The trail passed through bare aspen, then out into low sage where the mountain opened beneath me. There, wind flattened the grass, lifted fine snow between the shrubs, and carried the doe's scent away in pieces. I kept below the crest of the bench, where shallow folds hid my body. A deer that began running too soon would outrun what remained in me. I needed distance to disappear without asking my legs to give it back. Her sign told me more. She had stopped once beside bitterbrush, scraping snow away with a forehoof, then left after only a few bites. Farther down, one rear track pressed deeper. On stone, it might cost her. By midday, the spruce had become a black wall far above. I could still have turned back then. I could have climbed slowly into familiar cover and waded through another empty night. A gray shape moved across the next opening. The doe stepped from one patch of sage into another, lean beneath her winter coat, her ears turning through the wind. When her hind leg came down, the motion caught for half a beat before straightening. Small, almost nothing, but I was close enough to see it. She lifted her head, then she bounded downhill. I followed. I did not have the speed for a clean rush. I ran because she was already running, and because the chance I had followed out of the trees would close if I let the distance grow. Her first leaps were strong. Mine were measured. I watched where the ground turned loose beneath her hooves. She angled down across the slope instead of climbing. The stiffness in her rear stride showed more clearly now. Each hard landing brought her lower for an instant. It took something from me, too. Cold air scraped my throat. My belly pulled tight beneath me. Above us, shelter receded into the gray side of the mountain. Below, sage gave way to stone. The doe reached a talus fan where broken rocks spread across the slope. She tried to cross it fast. Loose stones rolled under her rear hooves. Her stride shortened. I lowered my head and closed the distance. There was no timber then, no wind. Only the line of her flank and the small failure in her rear leg every time it touched ground. A shallow, dry draw cut across the talus below us. She dropped into it hard and stumbled, climbing the other side. That was the opening. I drove forward. For one stride, I was close enough to smell heat below her coat. My jaws opened toward her rear flank. Stone scattered beneath my paws. She did not fall. The doe planted her front feet, twisted across the slope, and struck backward. Her hoof caught me along the right side of my chest. The air left me before I hit the rock. I rolled once, then stopped at the bottom of the draw. For a moment, there was only white sky above the sage and a hard pressure inside my ribs that would not let me breathe deeply. The doe scrambled free. When I rose, she was already across the lower bench, growing smaller between the brush. I tried to follow. The first stride pulled pain through my side. The second broke my breath short. I stopped before the third. Her scent stayed in the wind a little longer than her shape did. then it was gone. I stood where I had fallen until my legs stopped shaking. My tracks entered the draw in a straight line. After the place where she struck me, they turned uneven and shallow. Her tracks did not turn at all. They climbed from the draw and continued into the lower basin, quick now that fear carried her away. There was no open wound to clean, only the deep hurt of something bruised or cracked where every breath moved it. The hunger was still there. It had not become smaller because I had earned pain beside it. Darkness came early below the cloud. I looked uphill toward the spruce timber. The slope between us was exposed, steep enough to demand long breaths and hard turns. I could not make that climb before full night without spending more than my ribs would allow. The hunt had not trapped me here. I had brought myself here. Lower ground spread ahead in scattered juniper and open lanes where the wind passed without slowing. I had never bedded there. I did not know which hollow caught snow or where another animal might move after dark. But one pocket of juniper lay close enough to reach. I began toward it carefully, keeping my right side stiff. New snow arrived, clicking against stone. Behind me, it settled into the doe's tracks, into mine, into the place where the hunt had ended. The juniper was poor shelter, but it broke the wind near the ground. I circled once before lowering myself between two stones. Turning hurt. Lying down hurt more. After that, I kept still. Night passed in pieces. Sometimes I woke to the pressure in my side. Sometimes to snow gathering on the branches above me and slipping off in soft falls. I smelled no deer returning, no meat, no answer to the distance I had run. When light came, I stood slowly. My ribs held the same hard ache, but they held my weight. That was enough for the morning. The dark spruce line was still there, high and known, but the route back to it was pale and empty. I could not reach it quickly, perhaps not that day. Below me, the basin stretched through low juniper and gray brush, unfamiliar ground beneath a clean surface. Near my shelter, several mule deer tracks crossed the new snow. They were older than the doe's had been when I found her. No warmth rose from them. No weakness dragged at the rear print. They were not a promise. They were only a direction. I stepped out from the juniper and stopped on a low rise. My breath drifted in front of me. My right side stayed guarded against the cold. Behind me, uphill, was the timber I had left because waiting had become too costly. Ahead, the deer tracks faded into a basin I had never entered. Snow began to cover them as I watched. I went down after what remained.